And also, you had the opportunity to see how Ukrainians react to Poles and how Ukrainians react to British people. Was there any difference in the two?
Look, they were quite open. They named the countries that helped them the most, and they said Poland, UK, America, Lithuania, Estonia, a few other countries. These were the countries that they felt are really helping. And, you know, some people also told me, we don't know what Germany is doing because they declare a lot, but we don't see German support on the ground. So there are various opinions. And certainly towards me, the reaction was so positive. I had people, you know, hugging me, crying, and just telling me, thank you for what you're doing. You didn't have to come here. So, because some people would say, oh, well, a lot of Ukrainians are not thankful. But what I witnessed there were real tears and people who were just very happy to see me there. And they said, thank you for what your nation has done to us. And even I remember one border security guy who was checking us and said, oh, British people, British passport's wonderful. And then he noticed a Polish passport and he said, wow, that's great. You're one of ours. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, there is that certain Slavic brotherhood, but at the same time, Poles and Ukrainians have some episodes in their joint history which were difficult, especially, or most recently, the Volhynian massacre during the Second World War, in which Ukrainian nationalist groups massacred tens of thousands of Polish civilians in the areas which are today in Western Ukraine. Is this a topic that in any way came up during the trip?
Look, some people argue that history shouldn't be debated. We have a common enemy now, that's Putin's army, and we should just forget or not really deal with history at the moment. I disagree with that. We really do need to speak about history to have a better, more honest, sincere relationship today. So I'm not afraid to speak about these topics. I'm also quite well read about this, so I understand the Ukrainian perspective. So I look at it from two angles before I approach a topic. This one time we went to a rehabilitation center for veterans, and I did notice a black and red flag somewhere. I didn't see many of them, and I went to many cities, but I saw it there, and I asked the gentleman who was the director of that building, what do you think about this flag? He was half Polish, interestingly. He spoke a little bit of Polish, and he said, look, this is not connected to anything from the Second World War. This flag symbolizes the blood. It's anti-Russian. It's our strongest anti-Russian symbol. That's why we're using it. I said, look, I understand you don't want it to be connected to the Second World War, but a lot of people don't understand that. That flag has been used by UPA and fascist nationalist forces. What can we do about it? And he said, look, it's not connected, etc. I told him, look, a lot of Polish people, a lot of Jewish people are getting slightly annoyed if these symbols, even if you don't connect them to any of the crimes that have been committed, are shown. And he couldn't understand it. Look, he wasn't obviously sort of whitewashing the crimes. He was half Polish. You can't be, fascist or nationalist in a negative meaning of that word and support Bandera. But he was a little bit lost. And I told him, we are worried if those things are not resolved right now, then more Polish people will be annoyed, and then Ukrainians will be annoyed, and who will win? Russians will win. So we need to have a real debate about it. And he said, how can we do it? How can we have that debate? And we came up with this idea where you should put the Polish historians, Ukrainian historians, in a house, lock them in like an American jury. You can't come out if you haven't resolved this issue for, I don't know, a week or how long they need. Make it nice, give them some drinks and give them time to get to know each other. And they have to come up with a resolution for this issue. They have to come up with a paper that will be appreciated by Polish people, by Jewish people, by Ukrainian people. When those issues are resolved, it will be so much easier, so much better to cooperate today. And this has to be done. It is so important. And I feel the Ukrainians also want it, but there needs to be a dialogue, a private dialogue resolving these issues, and we need it now.
Yes, this debate that you mentioned is clearly much needed. Unfortunately, we still don't know much about each other's history and each other's point of view. Poles also aren't fully aware of some of the repression that took place in interwar Poland when it came to difficulties for Ukrainian language in education, for example, and so on, or getting a job in state or regional administration as a Ukrainian. And the Ukrainians, they certainly don't know about the Polish point of view about what happened in the Volyn massacre, which is clearly objectively what really happened, the truth here. But right now, so many Ukrainians have fled to Poland during the war. Is this something that you encountered as well, that you met people that said, oh, my aunt or my niece is living in Poland? Could you feel this, that many said that they have families in Poland somewhere?
Yes, absolutely. I've heard it many times in Kiev and in other cities of people who either had some Polish roots, or they at least visited Poland, or they worked in Poland, or they had experiences from Poland. And generally they had very good experiences. The Ukrainians were so thankful, the ones I met. So yeah, I've seen it all over. I mean, just taking into account how many millions have moved. So yeah, I've met a lot of such people.
Also, what is your feeling when it comes to whether the Ukrainians are still willing to fight? Because some people are saying that the war has now been dragging on for more than a year and a half, and maybe the Ukrainian will to fight is slowly starting to disappear. Is this something that you felt there, or rather they want to continue to fight until victory?
I've noticed that Ukrainians are very high-spirited. I haven't seen people who are giving up, or I have seen people who had nothing because everything was destroyed. But they knew that the only solution to this is to push Russians as far as possible and then come up to a truce. I haven't met a single opinion of people who would say we need to do a truce tomorrow with the current territories, because they knew that if we do a truce right now, then simply the Russians will just regroup and they will treat it as a victory and they will wait for another attack. If they get a bloody nose and they're pushed away, then a truce can be made. And Ukrainians really know this. And the people that I've met had really high hopes. They thought, I spoke to veterans. I spoke to people who lost their arms, who lost their legs, or were just on wheelchairs, probably for the rest of their lives. And they said, we've been just fighting for our land, for our area, for our families. If we can, we will come back to the front line. We will continue fighting. I just don't know how many Ukrainian men will be able to still do it. There are, many dying, but the spirits are very high. And of course, the life is different in Kiev and in Western regions because you have them quite well protected. So, for example, when I went to the bomb shelter, because the area was being attacked with the Shaheeds, I felt, wow, this was an experience for me. I had to be there for a number of hours, etc. But for many people, this happens every second day. And they're used to the alarms, they're used to the sirens, they know that the rockets are just flying above them. So there is this fatigue, I guess, but people are still in very high spirits.
And a final question, I thought we can go back in time a little bit. Just before the invasion in 2022, a couple of days earlier, the Poles, the Ukrainians, and the British announced that they are forming a trilateral military cooperation format. Later on in April, there was another upgraded version of this. So there was some talk about forming some kind of commonwealth in the UK. They were talking about some form of new cooperation between the UK, the Baltic states, Poland, Ukraine, and potentially also even Romania. This idea of some form of more engaged group that it looks like the British, they are looking for other partners than just Brussels and the EU. Is this something that was discussed on the British Isles when you were there during the first few days of the war and the days before the war started?
Yes, absolutely. When the invasion started, I told a lot of my friends and colleagues, I told them, look, Germany and France, they're not really reacting properly to this invasion. If we were all united, it would have been much better. And I've heard from many people, look, don't worry about countries that are slow to react. Focus on the countries that are really willing. This coalition of the willing that the Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs has actually spoken about is the way to go. Other countries will join later when they see how united the key countries are. So the trilateral partnership is very important. We can build a lot on that between the UK, Poland, and Ukraine. And I know there have been a lot of very important meetings in London, Warsaw, and elsewhere. So yes, we should be focusing on the countries that are helping. The Baltic states, before I remember, they were just focusing on Brussels, and anything that comes from Brussels, that's the holy truth, that's it. But now when I speak to the Lithuanians, they really look up to Poland, they really look up to Lithuania, because they know that these are the countries that will come to your aid if something happens. They will not be waiting for half a year to send their helmets. So yeah, Poland is leading the way, UK is leading the way, and we should be doing as much as possible to push the Russians away, but also do find a truce eventually, but after the Ukrainian victory.
Thank you very much for coming, and we hope to have you here again.
Thank you so much.